Namaskar. Welcome to this session. We have commenced considering the sutra on Hanam, sutra on Kaivalyam, the Parama Purushartha, the moksha. The sutra is 2.25. Tadabhavat sanyoga bhavo hanam tad drushehe kaivalyam. Tadabhava avidya bhavat. Avidya bhavat sanyoga bhavaha. With avidya abhava, with absence of avidya, the conjunction comes to an end. The drashta drashyak samyogam, conjunction, prakriti purusha conjunction comes to an end. And that itself is hanam. That is called hanam. That is the very kaivalyam of drushi, the kaivalya of the drashta. So that is the sutra, and therein we were coming to see the difference between Svarupa-avastha of Asamrajn Samadhi and Svarupa Pratis of Kaivalyam. So to abide in oneself is Asamrajn Samadhi. To be established in one's essential nature is Kaivalyam. So we were saying Vyasa's quotation here, Vyasa's statement here. Svarupa Pratishtha punaha buddhisattva anabhisambandhat purushasya chitishaktireva kevala tasyaha sada tathaiva avasthanam kaivalyam iti. So this is his commentary in the last sutra of the text, 4.34. While in this sutra he says, Tada Svarupa Pratishthaha Purusha iti uktam. This is what is his commentary in this sutra. And in the last sutra of the text, I just now quoted, Svarupa Pratishtha punaha. When there is established condition in Svarupam, then punaha buddhisattvam anabhisambandhat. Therefore, there won't be once again relationship, conjunction, contact, association of buddhisattva with Purusha. Punaha buddhisattva anabhisambandhat purushasya Chitishaktireva kevala. Then it is Chitishaktireva. It is only exclusively Chitishakti. And that is Kaivalya-avastha. That is its isolation from Prakriti for all times. Tasya sada tathaiva avasthanam kaivalyam iti. So that it would remain in its pristine form. The Purusha Tattva would remain in its pristine form for all times. So that is to reiterate that once the Kaivalyam is had, there is no chance of that being revoked. It is irrevocable state of Kaivalya, or condition of Kaivalya rather. So, about Svarupa Pratishtha and Svarupa-avastha or Svarupa-avasthiti, there is something more to be told. Although in both states, that is Asamrajnat Samadhi state and Kaivalya state, there is absence of contact with the gunas. Absolutely. And To that extent, there is seeming similarity in the two states. So we can cite the similarity between the Svarupa-avasthiti of Asamrajn Samadhi and Svarupa Pratis of Kaivalyam. So there is that some factors of similarity in the two conditions on the lines of psychocosmology. In Kaivalyam, it has such a state on account of transcendence to Samadhi. So therefore, we can see the Kaivalya having a transcendence over Asamprajnata Samadhi by what in philosophical argumentation they call it Danda Apopanyaya, the maxim of cakes and stick. Meaning, when a stick is held in the hands, it is to drive the rats away, and together with cake in the hands means to attract the rats. So cake in the hands means to attract the rats, and the stick in the other hand is to drive the rats away. So both are, the cake in hand and stick in hand are kept together. And when one says that the sticks have been eaten away by rats, it means that the cakes too have been eaten away by the rats. So this is that very interesting Danda Apopanyayam. Because the rats or mice would not be eating away the stick, which is simultaneously existing with cakes. They would eat away the cake and then they would eat away the sticks. So when the stick is eaten away or said to be eaten away, it implies certainly that the cakes too have been eaten away. So the dissociation with gunas caused in Samadhi is on account of total restraint in the Citta, which is a sort of culmination of yoga in Caittic plane, but not the Summum bonum. While in Svarupa Pratis, the yogi reaches a metapsychological culmination on account of Summum bonum achieved. It is because of the realization or materialized condition that Purusha and Sattva are totally distinct, and now there is complete separation for all times. Therefore, the Svarupa-avastha of Asamrajn Samadhi is a state which results in psychic organization absorbed from the actuality to potentiality, while Svarupa Pratis of Kaivalya is total dismantlement and a grand extermination of any possible reworkability of psychic organization. So the psyche itself is dismantled in Kaivalyam, while the psyche is just restrained in Asamrajn Samadhi, or in more precise words, the Citta is merely restrained in Asamrajn Samadhi, but in Kaivalya the Citta is dismantled altogether. So therefore, the Kaivalya is chirasthayi Svarupa-avastha. Chirasthayi means irrevocable, eternal, constant, and for all times. But it won't be proper to mention that way, that there is all-time dissociation or all-time disjunction or a permanent divorce of Buddhi Sattva with the Purusha Tattva. Because the Buddhi Sattva which is in the Citta itself stands dismantled. That would be more precise description of it. So, therefore, Samadhi is a culmination of subjectivistic state with the psychology of on the empirical plane, and not getting totally sublated or completely getting annulled. There is no complete lope of the Citta. So it is the state of consciousness. Asamrajn Samadhi is a state of Citta where the self abides in its own form. Therefore, Samadhi culminates in subjectivism of very highest order, where there is a fortification of the self. So there is a fort around the self, Purusha Tattva. So it is fortified, and therefore the gunas do not touch the Purusha in Asamrajn Samadhi. But in Svarupa Pratis, there is explicit transcendence over the immaculate, faultless subjectivism of Svarupa-avastha. Moreover, there is implicit concordance which is immanent in Svarupa Pratis. It's a major attribute, while in subjectivistic state of Samadhi, it is major disunion as attribute. If what is implicit is made explicit, then there would be no difference between conception of liberation of Upanishads, which extol the unexceedable bliss and which is a highly abundant overflow of religious consciousness. And therefore, what is implicit in the word Svarupa Pratis is made explicit, then there would be the rapprochement between the Vedanta concept of liberation, which is mainly a concord with the Brahman in a state that is called as Brahmanization of the self, and not a discordive state on account of extermination of the threefold pain. What I am trying to say is, Kaivalyam is not just dukkha vimukti, atyantika dukkha vimukti, as is held by the Vedantis as a point of view of Sankhya and Yoga. They say Yoga and Sankhya only mean Kaivalya means atyantika dukkha vimukti, while in Vedanta there is express mention of anandam. So, what is being said here is that it is not that way, that it is not only dukkha vimukti, but there is infinitude of bliss in the very subjectivistic state of Purusha Tattva. So it should not be held that Patanjalas and Sankhya's do not mention bliss factor in liberation, while it is explicit, which is in Vedanta, but then it is implicit in Patanjali system that Svarupa Pratishtha is something where the bliss is very much there. It is not just that the Purusha abides in his own form, as is expressed in the Yoga Sutras and Patanjali's philosophy. And that's why the Patanjalas have used another word rather than Svarupa-avastha, and they have used the word Svarupa Pratishtha. And therefore, there is the difference between Svarupa-avastha, Svarupa-avastha and Svarupa Pratishtha. And Svarupa Pratishtha definitely implies that bliss of infinitude, which is expressly mentioned, held in Vedantic texts or Vedantic philosophy. Then at this point in time, we also remember the Shruti, the scriptural statement of Shvetashvatar Upanishad 3.8, and also Yajurveda 31.18, or Purusha Sukta, a part of Purusha Sukta, which is thus: Vedahametam Purusham Mahantam Aditya Varnam Tamasa Parastat Tameva Vidva Atimrutyumeti Nanya Pantha Vidyate Ayanaya. So this Vedantic statement mentions with clarity certain things. That it is Aditya Varnam, self. To be in self, it is Aditya Varnam, that means there is luminosity. And Tamasa Parastat, it is beyond Tamas. And the scripture clearly says that this is only the way, and there is no other way for Atimrutyu or for moksha or nirvana. There are no two different states, as one as Kaivalya, another as moksha, one as Kaivalya or another as mukti. It is all the one, because there is only one way that final goal in spiritual Summum bonum can be reached. So it is not proper to tease the Patanjalas by saying that Patanjalas are only speaking of dukkha vimukti. This is what the Neo-Vedantists have been doing. Dukkha vimukti is definitely a part of it. Absolute dukkham. It's not just sensation of sorrow, but metapsychical concept of sorrow. So there is, in that mental subjectivism, it is not only taking up to sorrowlessness, but it gives the Purusha established condition called Svarupa Pratishtha in actually Ishwara. Because Svarupa Pratishtha, when it gets established, it is in Ishwara Tattvam, it is in Brahma Tattvam itself. So in process of yoga, there is subjectivistic journey, Atmanishtata, subjectivistic journey, and in such journey there are two phases. So let us understand these two phases. The first one is the subjective entity behind buddhi which Patanjali mentions, Sada Gnyatas Chitta Vrittayaha Tat Prabho Purushasya. So there the Purusha is Swami and the Buddhi is Swa. So the subject of Buddhi is Purusha Tattva. And the Purusha Tattva gives rise to Manas, Buddhi, Teha, Indriya, Sanghat. So he is actually substrate of all human complex of body, mind, senses. So in the internal journey, this is realized, that Purusha is substrate. Purusha is the substratum of this incarnation. Then that substrate itself has a substrate which is Purusha Vishesha. Purusha and Purusha Vishesha, these two entities are described by Patanjalas. So Purusha Vishesha is substrate of Purusha itself. That is the Antaryami. So that's why he, the Ishwara, is subject of the subject. So if even the Kaivalya is a subjectivistic state, there the subjective entity is Ishwara. And that is the Pratishtha. So the individual self is established in Purusha Vishesha Ishwara. That is what is implied in philosophy of Patanjali. So Ishwara is subject of the subject. The Purusha is subject of the Buddhi. The Buddhi and Citta are objects of Purusha. Therefore, Purusha is subject. And subject of Purusha itself is Ishwara Tattva, which is implied in Patanjali's philosophy. And I recall here a wonderful passage from Kenopanishad 1.2, which is so interesting. It says, Shrotrasya Shrotram Manaso Mano Yad Vachoha Vachakam Saupranasya Pranaha Chakshuscha Chakshu Atimrutya Dhiraha Pratyasman Lokat Amruta Bhavanti. So Shrotrasya Shrotram, that is Brahma Tattva. Manaso Mano Yad, mind of the mind is Brahma. The Vacha of the Vacha is again Brahma. Prana of the Prana is Brahma. So also Chakshu of the Chakshu, the Brahman. And that realization of the Brahman definitely is Atimrutyu and Amrutatvam. This is what the Kenopanishad is mentioning in 1.2. There is another quotation which comes in Brihadaranyaka 3.7.23. न अन्यतो अस्ति द्रष्टा न अन्यतो अस्ति श्रोता न अन्यतो अस्ति मंता न अन्यतो अस्ति विज्ञाता एषत आत्मा अंतर्याम्यमृतः. For that Ishwara, na anyato asti drashta, there is no other seer other than him. There is no other hearer other than him. There is no other thinker other than him. There is no other Vijnata other than him. And that is Antaryami Amruta. So that Ishwara is the self of the self. That is why it is Antaryami. So when the Patanjala mentions Svarupa Pratishtha in Kaivalyam, we should know where it is established. And it is not only by dukkha nivrutti, but of course dukkha nivrutti is paramount. There must be dukkha nivrutti, otherwise there is no settled condition, established condition in that Ishwara or Svarupa Pratishtha, as mentioned in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. But then this sorrowlessness is also mentioned in Upanishads. Upanishads is not just, they are not just mentioning Anandam, but they also mention Dukkha Nivrutti. This should not be uncited. And therefore, there is no way to deprecate or look down upon Patanjalas and Sankhyas by saying that they only speak about Dukkha Nivrutti, Atyantika Dukkha Nivrutti. They only mention end of all sorrows. Upanishads too mention the same way. To testify this position, I can draw your attention to Shveta Ashvatar Upanishad 1.11, where it says, Gnatvadevam sarvapashapahanihi क्षीणैः क्लेशैः जन्ममृत्युप्रहाणैः तस्य अभिध्यानात् तृतीयं देहभेदे विश्वैश्वर्यं केवल आप्तकामः. So it also mentions sarvapashapahani, end of all bondage. Kshinai kleshaihi, all kleshas, dukkhas coming to an end. And end of rotation from janma to mrityu and mrityu to janma. And that is videha mukti. And this is beyond the third plane called Svarga Lokam. It is beyond and transcending the Svarga Lokam, and there one is Aptakama. So, the sorrowlessness is also mentioned in Moksham and Kaivalyam in Upanishads. So, in Kaivalya there is not only Svarupa Prapti but Svarupa Pratishtha. And even in Upanishads, one of the Vidyas called Purusha Vidya of Chandogya Upanishad, the Prajapati is giving instruction of Brahma Vidya, and there the Chandogya Shruti is also interesting, which says Param Jyotirupa Sampadya Svena Rupena Abhinishpadyate. Svena Rupena, so Svarupa. Again it is Svarupam. So Param Jyotirupa Sampadya Svena Rupena Abhinishpadyante is what Chandogya Upanishad says in 8.12.2. And Vyasa has similar expression in his commentary, which is a version of what the Chandogya Upanishad has said. Anyway, the Upanishads also has some similar mention about the Moksham or Paramapadam or Kaivalyam, which is Svarupa Pratishtha. And the fact of the matter is that in such case, the Citta is dismantled, absolutely dismantled, and therefore there can be no appearance of revokement of moksha or kaivalya or nirvana. There is that eternality in Paramapurushartha, which is called moksha. And it is purely a subjectivistic state, according to Patanjalas, according to Upanishads also. Svena Rupena, Svena Svarupena. So Svarupa-avastha, Svarupam is so important. One abides in Svarupam. One is established in Svarupam. Such expressions also have come in Upanishads. Anyway, it would be interesting to incidentally talk about the moksham of Tarkikas, Naiyayikas. And according to them, it is more express mention that moksha is pashanavat avastha. Pashanavat. And the Neo-Vedantis have this kind of criticism that just as in Tarkika Matam, Nyaya Matam, moksha is pashanavat avastha, that nothing touches it. Similarly is the Kaivalyam of yogis or yoga, which is hypercriticality, undue criticality of the Neo-Vedantis. The classical Vedantis don't have it, but Neo-Vedantis have this criticism. While they say our concept of liberation is parakashtha of anandam, the bliss reaches infinitude, and while like Tarkikas, the Patanjalas too posit or postulate pashanavat avastha in Kaivalya, which is exaggeration and undue criticality. And about Paramavastha, Parakashtha of Anandam, I recall a Shruti from Chandogya Upanishad 7.25.2. Sava esha evam pashyan eva manvanam eva vijanan atmaratir atmakriya atmamithuna atmananda swaswarad bhavati tasya sarveshu lokeshu kamacharo bhavati. So, highest bliss is expressly mentioned in Upanishads. This is beyond any doubt. But it is also implicit in the Kaivalyam of Patanjalas. And of course, we should not miss that it is also explicit in Patanjala philosophy, which we will be seeing shortly. The Advitiya Sukham, immeasurable bliss, unparalleled bliss, is also getting mentioned in relation to Kaivalyam. Vyasa in his commentary quotes a Purvacharya. There is a dialogue between Avatyacharya and Jaigishavyacharya. So it's a dialogue between Avatya and Jaigishavya. Avatya questions Jaigishavya about something where Jaigishavya discloses the Anandam in Kaivalyam. Now this Jaigishavyacharya, the preceptor in the dialogue, he was a Siddha yogi. He had gone through 10 Mahasargas, Ananta Koti Janma Janmantaras, and he has memory of all that. We have only memory of our present life pleasures. None of us recall our pleasures of even past life. Now, how we eternal beings can claim that whatever pleasure has been experienced in this life is only the pleasure that you have experienced? We have been experienced various kinds of pleasures in various incarnations that we have gone through, countless of them. So here, the Vyasa in his commentary quotes 10 Mahasargas. Jaigishavya remembers the 10 Mahasarga Ananta Koti, multi-billions of incarnations. He remembers all of those. And he has taken pleasures in all the lokas, the 7 planes of heavens. He has taken pleasures of all the 7 planes. But then he says none of them is the excellent one. What is the par excellent or par excellence kind of bliss? So there Vyasa quotes his words, the words of Jaigishavyacharya in 3.18. Deva manusheshu punah punah utpadyamanena cha sukha dukkha yoho kim adhikam upalabdha iti. So Jaigishavya answers this question, tat sarvam dukkham eva pratyavemiti. So all those pleasures are actually dukkhas only. I had lots of pleasures which I remember from all my incarnations in 10 Mahasargas. I remember them very, very vividly, but now I conclude that even although they were pleasures then, they are all dukkham eva. Then which is the supreme bliss? Is the Santosha Sukham which is mentioned by Patanjali, Santoshat Anuttama Sukhalabhaha. Is that also Dukkha Koti? Is it also of the class of Dukkham? So, there Vyasa makes few statements. Yadidam ayushmataha pradhanavashitvam anuttamam cha santosha sukham kim idam api dukkha pakshe nikshiptam iti. All those various siddhis which are mentioned, where there can be paramavastha of sukham, like pradhanavashitvam, etc. The supreme siddhi, is it all dukkham? So Jaigishavya gives a reply which is very interesting. He says, Vishya Sukhapekshayaiva Vedam Anuttamam. It is definitely superior than all the Vishya Sukhas. Santosha Sukham Uktam Kaivalya Sukhapekshaya Dukkham Evam. So he says, compared to Kaivalya Sukham, Santoshat Anuttama Sukhalabha is also Dukkham. So it is very express even in Patanjali's treatise by Vyasabhashyas mention that Kaivalyam is Sukham. So Kaivalya Sukha has a reference made clearly even in Patanjala's text and Vyasabhashya there. This is overlooked by Neo-Vedantis. And therefore they say there is no mention of bliss in Kaivalyam of Patanjala's. Whereas the fact is, the Sukham has been mentioned explicitly and not necessarily implicitly. So, with that, we are coming to the end of this Hanam as well, which is Kaivalyam. And therefore now we embark upon the 4th factor of the Chaturvyuha, Hanopayaha. What is the means of this Kaivalyam that is mentioned in 2.25? So now the 2.26 comes to mention the means for Kaivalyam. What are the measures and means of this Kaivalyam? Vivekakhyatihi aviplava hanopayaha is the sutra. So we now commence on this 2.26 in our following session. So enough for the day. Namaskar all of you.